Beginners, this one is for you. Today we'll be learning editing, the basics that is. Davinci Resolve will be the program of choice, but you could follow along if you're a Premiere user or Final Cut user, because most of the steps remain the same, just maybe different keys and certain functions will be in different places of different programs. But oftentimes they're under the same name or something slightly different. But if you understand technology or you're familiar with any form of editing, it's easy to discover. All right. So after you download Davinci Resolve from their website, I'll put a link in the description to where you could get it. They have a free version and they have a studio version. Studio version is paid. I'm not sure of the cost right now. I'll put it on screen. And the free version, anybody could use it. There are some limitations like you can edit 10-bit footage in it and such, but everything else is there. For most people, they won't run into this issue. All right, I'll be using the studio version today because that's what I have, but everything looks and works the same. After you download DaVinci and you open the program, this is a screen that will greet you, all right? All right, so by clicking on these setting icons here, this is where you find your timeline resolution. I normally recommend that your timeline is always in 24p. Doesn't matter if you shoot in 60 or 120, always make sure that your final timeline output is 24p. 24p is the cinematic standard. It's not 30, it's not 60. I see y'all trying to push this 30p thing, and we're not going to let it happen. Stop it. 24p is the standard, and it looks best to the human eye. We need to see those motion blurs and stuff. So guys, please to make sure your timeline is in 24p, and let's begin. You click new project. You give your project a name and then you click create. All right. So I already pre-prep mine. So I'll click on one that I pre-prep. All right. So now we're inside Davinci Resolve. We're currently on the edit page because if you ask me, that's the easier page to edit on. It's basically similar to most of the programs out there like Adobe and Final Cut Pro. You have the cut page. If you do find it easier for you to edit on the cut page, you could do so as well, but we'll be showing the edit page in this demonstration. All right, so let's start from left to right. Okay, so in the top left corner right now currently, this is where your footage will live. This is where you will pick your footage from to go on the timeline into your final project. All right, and then to create bins, I normally like to organize my files in bins so I could know what is what, so I don't have to be searching and running up and down to look for what I want. So like footages with dialogue like talking or the main clips that will always be on screen, I'll put it in stuff like main cam. B-rolls is what you normally overlay over footages of people talking or things that goes over the main footage to support what the main footage is saying or showing, right? And then drone shots speaks for itself. So in main cam now, as you can see, we have some footage inputted already. To input footage into the bins, you right click, you click import media, and then it'll ask you on which drive or where is the location of the footage you want to import. I already imported some, so wherever on your hard drive your footage is, you take it from there and you select, and you click open, and then they'll automatically go in the bin. Or for you shortcut users that like to use shortcut, the shortcut key to import footage is Command I or Control I. All right. You could also import footage by dragging and dropping. So if you have the folder open already, you could highlight all the footages that you want, and then you could just drag it and let it go, and then it will automatically import it as well. So that's another way of doing it. All right. So next we have our effects tab. This is where all your titles, video transition, audio transition, effects, filters, you name it, lives over here. If you're not seeing this tab, you go up top, you click on effects to toggle it on. All right, so that's effects, pretty self-explanatory. We'll get to that in a few when we are ready for that. Next, we have your timeline window. This is what you have on your timeline currently. So whatever your sequence is, this is the window you see it in. All right, This is your inspector tab. This is where you do all your positioning, scale, keyframes. We'll talk about that in a sec. And your adjustment, your cropping, your stabilization, your corrections and such. Now, if you turn off the inspector tab, or if you're not seeing it, to turn it on, you click it, to turn it off, you click it again. So now you have your preview window. This window is used to do your clip selection or your section from your clips that you want selected. So now as you can see, I clicked on a clip right here and I wanted to bring a section from this clip onto the timeline. So how I do that is I scrub through to see where in the clip I want to use, and then I'll press I on the keyboard. So I on the keyboard is to select your in point and O is to select your out point. So basically in and out point is where you want the clip to start and where you want it to end. So right here is where I want my clip to start. So I'll click on I and then I'll play to see where I want it to stop. And then I'll stop right there and then I click O. So here's the next thing now. When you're ready to bring it on the timeline, if you want both audio and video to come on the timeline at the same time, you drag from the image itself and you go like this. If you want just the video, you select this video tab right here. There's a little box with some little smaller rectangles inside of it. You click on this and this would only drag the video. If you want just the audio, you click on the audio waves right here and it will bring in just the audio. For both, you click the image. For video only, you click this, and for audio only, you click the audio waves. All right? So we just want the video for this demonstration. So we will drag the clip to the timeline. All right? So now we are going to learn what each tool does. All right? So first, since that we're already on the move tool, this is the arrow right here that you see is highlighted in red. This is your move tool. This is what you use to highlight, to drag your clips all around the timeline, to make adjustments, to trim your clips, make it longer, make it bigger. This tool does it all. All right. Then the next tool we're going to talk about is the cut tool. This is used to cut up your footage. If you want to take off a part, move a part down more on the timeline or whatever. So that's what the cut tool is for. The snapping tool is used to make big jumps. Not necessarily say big jumps, but to jump and snap to the timeline, because the timeline have some markers on it. So for example, as you can see, when it's on, it's snapping like a manic, wherein if it's off, you can make more precise movements by the second. As you can see, the timer right there is showing that it's moving by the second because it's off. So normally when it's off is when I want to kind of move slightly. I don't want it to make that big of a jump. That's when I keep it off. When I want it on is when I'm moving clips, when I remove something from my timeline. All right. The next tool that I want to show you is called the Rip Delete. So let's say you use the cut tool and you cut something out of this section right here. Instead of you dragging each clip back one by one, or even highlighting all the clips to drag it back like that, you could just right click, Rip Delete. Don't matter how far it is on the timeline, if it's way out there, you can't even see it. Once you right click, Rip Delete, that pulls it all in. All right, so that's the Rip Delete. So basically, these are the main tools that you'll be using right throughout your editing process. There's a lot more tools to learn, but as I said, this is a basic demonstration. We don't need to know everything right now. These tools that I'm showing you right now is all you need to complete your project. All right, so I told you about the move tool, the cut tool, the snapping tool, and all of that. So the next thing you want to know now is how to cut to music. So for example, this is my music track. You import your music same as how you import footage. So you bring your music in, then you drag it to the timeline, and it's muted right now, and you drag it to the timeline, and then now you want to cut your video to the music that's on your timeline. What I normally suggest is that you find an instrument in the beat that you want the footage to change to. So let's say you have a drum beat or a snare or a guitar or something that's in the rhythm that you want to change to. You find that beat and you listen for it every time that beat comes in, you change the footage to it. But my next tip, when, for example, you're doing an highlight video, I suggest to change every 2 seconds. But to make sure that the cut seems smooth, as a smooth transition when it's cut, you cut it on the beat. So every 2 seconds, but find that specific beat that lands every 2 seconds to make that cut. So the cut seems smooth. All right. So let me play this for you. So you could see how it flows, and then we'll make adjustment going along on the beat as how I was explaining. So we'll be using the waveform to make those adjustments. So just watch this right here. Alright, so basically that's how it is currently. So definitely, let we see where the first change takes place. As you can see, 2 seconds in. This one is 5 seconds in. So this one could be adjusted. So I'll tell you, as you could see the waveform, has a peak right here. So just going off the waveform without listening, I can tell that this is where I could make a cut, right? So we're going to right click and repeat delete to bring in the footage from the right hand side. So if I had to click back play. You really gotta work for that bag, go get it one day you can brag. You really gotta work for that bag, go get it one day you can brag. Alright, so basically as you can see, we're kind of on beat. There are some more special cuts that you can make to give it vibe, and I'll show you down more in this video. But currently, the flow is not bad. You just want to make sure that you're on beat when you're cutting, right? So you don't see the cut after the beat has dropped, if you follow what I'm saying. Yeah. So you notice it cuts when you say yeah. You want it, girl. Then it cuts again when you say you want it. So it's like every 2 seconds you could just play with the cuts. There's no rule to cut in. It's just to make sure that the cut is smooth. Alright? It transitions smoothly. So you could just play around with that to get the vibe that I'm saying. So here's a little quick tip to give a little, to spruce up a little bit. So here we have a fast pace in the rhythm, like. Alright, so what I normally do when doing stuff like this to play with the rhythm is I'll make cuts to where I see these waves right here in the rhythm, and then delete every other footage. Alright, so I'll turn off my snapping tool so I could be more precise with the cuts. Press C on the keyboard, or you could just press the razor blade tool. So you press C, you cut here, cut here, cut here, cut here, here, and then you continue to go along with the cuts, alright, until you reach the next section. And as I said, you're going to delete every other one. So I delete this one, then delete that one, and that one, and that one, and also this one. So now if we play it, you'll see what happens.
One day you can brag, see that I have it, you know that I got.
So that's a nice flashing effect. All right. So next thing we're going to learn about now is the inspector tab. So we're going to click on a clip. You have to make sure that the clip is selected. Then you click on inspector. You make sure that the clip is selected, then you click on inspector. So whatever clip is highlighted in red, that's what will be adjusted with any changes you make right here. All right. So let's say right here now we need to zoom in to my face a bit. So the zoom does as it says, zooms right in. All right. Position, X is left and right, Y is up and down. So if you made a movement that you want to go back to, all you have to do is click the undo button right here, undo button right here, and it brings it back to the beginning stages. All right, so you want to rotate, same thing. So it's just really to play around with these section right here to really see what it does. Right, I don't normally trouble this pitch and yaw thing, but you could try and see what it does. You want to flip the image, that does it right there, quick and fast. So cropping is a nice tool that I love to use as well. So once you click on cropping, as it the name state, crop left, crop right, top, bottom, and also you could feather it out. So let's say you want to write some information here. We just go softness, feather it out, crop some more, write what you're writing. These are some more technical stuff on the inspector tab that you learn over time as you go along, but right now we don't need to trouble any of that. What we're learning is just the basics. So next we want to focus on some transitions. Like that's the thing that transitions you in between clips. So moving from one clip to the next. All right. So under video transition, as I said, if you're not seeing the effects tab, just click effects up in the top left corner right here, and it will pop up. So under video transition, we want to do a cross dissolve. So to do the cross dissolve, you could just either run your mouse over the effect name and you see what it does before you bring it on the timeline. So as you can see, right? So there's quite a few built in to choose from, and you could bring external transitions in as well. Further you go along in the program, you understand that there's a lot you could do to make your videos more like your creativity. All right, so we're going to bring in the cross dissolve between these two footage right here. So you just drag it and bring it in between the footage that you want to do the transition to. So now that's in between it, let's see what it does. Nice, very smooth. So that's one. Let's try dip to color for the next. In between, let go. So black was the color we used, but you could also change the color of it under the inspector tab. All right, so you click on it, and once it's highlighted in red, so all you have to do is zoom out on the timeline, because a lot of times it's too small to click. So if it's too small to click, you zoom out on the timeline. So you go like this, you could click this tool right here, and one of these three tools right here to zoom back to normal, to zoom in a bit, or you could just use the plus and arrow to zoom in. So once you're zoomed in, you click on it, make sure it's red, and you could change the color right here to whatever color you want it to dip from. So I want white, so I select white, press OK, zoom back out, and then play it. All right, so we're going to try one more transition before we move on. All right, so now we're going to do the smooth cut. So as I said, bring it in the middle of footage, half and half, let go, and now we're going to play and see what that does. So this is more like a morphing effect. So if you're going for that effect, then that's nice. All right, so zoom up back our timeline. So let's say now you want to add some text to your footage for a title or whatever. So you come back over the effects tab, you click on titles, and then you have quite a few. So you have lower third, center, scroll, quite a few to choose from. So all you have to do, let's pick clean and simple. So you click on it and you drag it to where you want it on the timeline. So you let go, click, move it around to where you want to come to. I want it to come in at the beginning. So if we click play right now, you see the title come in. To adjust the duration of your title, all you have to do is hover to the edge of your title thing, and then you see the cursor changes. So we want it to change to the one bracket, and then you just click, and you see it highlighted green, and you just drag it to where you want it to stop. So I want mine to stop before the transition goes over to the next clip. To edit this title, all you have to do is click, make sure it's highlighted in red, and you could change the text here. So let's say you say test video. And you scroll down under the inspector tab, we're under the inspector tab right now, and you'll see the font that you want to use. And if you want to see changing, you could just go on it, just move your cursor to where it's on the screen already, and then test video. This was a two text title stamp, so we're adding two text. So we put test video. So this is where you go to change the font to what you want. So if you have a specific font that you like, all right, this is the size you want the size to be. You can play around with these stuff, line spacing and such. You guys are supposed to be familiar with this from Microsoft Word school days, right? So as you can see now, it's off screen, okay? And you want it to be centered. So all you have to do is make sure you're on video, then you click settings, and then you scroll up, play with position to center it, all right? So now, if we play it from top, all right? So if you want to fade out this effect, not even just the effect, if you want to fade out a clip or fade in a clip, every clip has a fade in and fade out point where you see these little white things on the left and the right, top left and right. You have to do is just drag it to the right or drag it to the left. And that will fade in an effect or fade in a clip. So you drag it to the left or drag it to the right. This will either fade in a clip, or fade out an effect, or fade in and vice versa. Alright? So I want to fade it out a bit. So when it plays, it fades out. Alright? That was a bit quick, but you get the gist. So next thing, let's say you have some audio of someone talking, and you want to underlay music under it. You need a music bed, but it's too loud, and you need to adjust the volume. There's two ways of doing so. You click on the music that you want, and you move your cursor until you see this double up and down arrow, and this is where you adjust your volume, right? And if this is not working for you, you could always do it under the audio page on the inspector. So this is the video, but video won't be highlighted if it's not a video that is selected. Once the audio that is selected, the audio options will come up, and you could adjust the volume from here as well. Davinci has a built-in voice isolation tool. I'm not sure if it's in the regular Davinci, but I know it's in the studio version for sure. So this is a denoiser. So if you have some audio and some noises in the background and you want to clean it up, all you have to do is click this, turn it on, and you can just adjust the amount of denoising you need. There's no wrong or right. You can't mess things up. There's always an undo button. You could play around to try to see what all of these do, and then you'll get more comfortable in using the program. Don't be scared to press a button or make any adjustments. All right. So to add volume, that's what you do. Fade in and fade out is also available on audio clips, as I said before. So if you want to fade in the audio, you just draw this to the left. If you want to fade it out, you draw it to the right, to the left. So right to fade in, left to fade out. All right. So as I said, always just be creative. Like, there's no wrong or right. Just make sure that you stick to the basics, which is cutting on the beat. Try to cut every 2 to 4 seconds. If you want faster cuts, you do like half a second to a second and a half or a second. Right? So just always make sure that it cuts on a beat or on a word or on specific stuff that is being said. So if you understand music, you know that music is 2 bar, 4 bar, 16 bar, 8 bar. So all I have to do is come there like 1, 2, cut, 1, 2, 3, 4, cut. Right? So that's how it works. So next we're going to go over the color page. This is where things get spicy now, but bear with me, it's not that hard as you think. So heading on over to the color page now, which is the 5th tab on the bottom row, the little circle with a lot of colors. It says color once you hover over it. So now, this is the fun part. These pretty wheels that you're seeing in the bottom left, this is where your adjustments like your brightness, your contrast, your exposure, your white balance, you name it. All right. So there's 2 ways of converting your footage from log to standard, which is Rec 709, as most industry people know it. But for new beginners, it's basically converting your footage back to normal as if it was shot on standard profile in the camera. Right? So shooting on log shouldn't be something scary because you don't know how to convert it. A lot of people is using LUTs straight onto their log footage without converting it first. A lot of LUTs have the conversion in it already, so it's not a bad thing, but you have to make sure that's the case and not just quick to just drop a LUT on a non-converted footage. So we are going to convert our first footage here by adding a color space transform to this node right here. Always try to make sure that color space transform is the last node. Every changes you want to make like brightness, color and such must be before your transformation node. So we're going to add some additional nodes here by right clicking, and then we're going to add one for brightness and contrast and such, and then we're going to add a next one for color. Because what you want to do is, let's say you want to make a slight adjustment to the color, but you don't want to trouble anything else. That's why it's always best to separate your nodes, so that way you could just click on each node that you want to adjust without affecting the other node. So why they suggest that you put the transformation node last, which is what's going to transfer your footage from log to standard Rec 709, is that if you put it first and any changes you make after will throw off the whole look of the footage, right? So they always make sure that it's the last thing done and everything else must happen before it. So you could work back way. So we are going to convert it now. So we're going to go to the effects section. If you're not seeing it, just click effects in the top right, type in color, and once you type in color, it will come up along with some other effects, but we're going to focus on the color space transform right now. So you drag, you let go where it's the green plus, and it's there. Currently nothing happens because now you have to input your camera settings. Okay, so normally when editing or shooting, you must know what you're shooting on. So for example, I shot this on the Blackmagic Pocket 6K and it was shot in RAW, so I automatically know that, oh, this is the setting, this is the color space that I shot in and all of that. The other camera on the timeline is a Sony, and I know that that was shot in S-Log3, and the color space is sgamut.cine. All right. So to convert that one, I'll show you as well. But for the Blackmagic, which is the first clip on the timeline here, so the input color space we're looking for is, once you shot on RAW, is wide gamut Gen 4/5. All right. So as you could see, it slightly adjusts the color already. So if you before, after, you'll see what it's doing there. And then the input camera now is Blackmagic Design Film. Right? Don't worry, it gets a little bit dark, but it's gonna come right back up. So the color space that we're looking for is Rec 709. You won't see a change here because my timeline is already set on Rec 709. It automatically standard for Davinci to be in Rec 709 already, so it doesn't definitely have to change these settings right here, but just to be on the safe side, we're going to do it anyway. Then the output gamma now, I normally use gamma 2.4. And as you can see, it brings it right back to standard. So before, after. So this is still a little bit pale. So we want to add some contrast and color to it. So now we're going to label our nodes. So to label our nodes, so we don't get mixed up, we're going to right click and then we're going to click node label. And then we're going to call this one transform. You could name it whatever you like, so it's easy for you to remember. Alright. Color exposure. So there's no right or wrong in coloring. There is, but none of us are professional colorists here. You could leave this as is, as how it is transformed, but let's say you want it to have a little bit more punch, a little more contrast, a little more color. This is how we're going to do it. All right, so while you're on exposure right here, exposure node, make sure it's highlighted in red. You could do this by sliding the contrast wheel, which is right here, clicking and dragging to add in some more contrast. All right, so if you want brightness, we will be on the gain wheel. So we're going to click the wheel right here, pushing it to the right. As you can see, it's getting a bit brighter. And let's say you want to lift the shadows a bit. You could do that to bring up the shadows. Want to add in some contrast. Currently it's at 50, you just slide it. And then there you go, we're having some more colors. To take it a bit further, we're going to go under the curves to give it a more punch, right? So the curves is right here. So once you hover your mouse over the tool, it will tell you what it is. So we're going to go over the curve section. Then we're going to click customs, right? So then we'll drag the bottom part here for a little bit more punch. Then we're going to add a little point in the middle and then bring it up. All right. Like that. And then back to the color wheels. We're going to lift the shadows a little bit. Okay. So to me now, it's a bit warm, right? So now I'm going to click on the color and then I'm going to go over offset wheel and then you click the little dot in the middle and the opposite of warm is cool. So we're going to drag it down to the blue just a little bit, not too much. Right? Just a little bit. You could do this in both ways. You could either use a temperature slider or you could use offset wheel. I think the offset wheel works best. So that's what I stick to. But yeah. So we're going to head back over to curves now because this is under the color node. And then we want to change the hue of this green to a bit more darker. So I'm going to click on it with the qualifier tool. So if you're not seeing this qualifier tool, you come right here. Sometimes it's on off, and you just select the little eyedropper tool right there. So once you click on the green that you want, it will pop up right here. So once you click on the circle, you drag it up or down. As you can see, the color of the green is changing, right? So we want it to be not too much of a fake green, but somewhere around there. And then you go under hue versus sat, click on it again. This is to take out some of the saturation from the green. As you can see, you can add more, take out. So down is removing, up is adding. So we'll pop a little, take it out. So we're going to go under the luminance of the green and do the same thing. Give more density to it. Alright. So this is just a creative process. You don't have to exactly do it like this, but this is how I would go in and make my tweaks. So this is just the basics. I'm not going to really go over all of it. So as you could see, everything is separated. Basically everything is on its own node. So if you want to see what each thing is doing, you just have to disable it by pressing Command and D. Then same for the color. So this is where we were, this is where we are. Alright. And basically that's it for this footage. Now let's convert a Sony footage. So this is the Sony footage before anything is done to it. So as I said before, you could start it like this, add your color space transform and do what you're doing, and then add your nodes after. So I'm going to do it in reverse now. So as I said, click effects, up top if you're not seeing it, type in color, color space transform, you drag it onto the clip. Nothing happens as yet because you did not input your settings. Alright, so as I said, find out the color space and the settings of the camera that you're shooting on to know the settings that need to go here. And every camera shows this setting. Alright. So for Sony, you go into picture profile, and then when you go into picture profile, you click it and you go in and you see all of what you shot on. So for me, it was S gamma that's seen. You scroll all the way down to the bottom. As you could see, some color pops in. Then we go S log 3 for the input gamma. As you can see, a little bit of contrast as well. Then for the output color space is Rec 709. And then gamma 2.4. So before, after, before, after. All right. So now, let's say you totally forgot to add the nodes before you do this. You forgot those steps and you did this and you don't want to undo this. All you have to do is right click, add node, add serial before. And you continue to do that to add additional nodes that you want to use. Because you could use anywhere from 1 to 100. It's up to you. There's no limit. Alright, so this footage basically looks decent enough. It doesn't really need any tweaks. But if you want to go in, you could go in and make additional changes to give it the look that you want it to give. Alright, so if you're using LUTs now, after you convert your footage to Rec 709, here's how I would do it. Instead of using, so after you do all of these input settings, instead of using gamma 2.4, I would use Cineon Flimlog. That's a bit flatter than the standard gamma 2.4. So before and after. So it slightly differs from the original. And then I'll add an additional node, and this is the only time it's okay to add a node after the transform for things like film grain, LUTs, sharpening and such. You will put after the transform. But any color corrections, exposure must be done before the transformation. Additional tweaks can be done after, right? So you add additional serial node, and then you go into your LUTs and you find LUTs you want to use. To make your footage look how you want it to look. So I have some LUTs here that I'm looking to see. Alright, so you could just run your mouse over it to see what works. Alright, let's just pick some. Let's say I want to use this one. Alright, so there you go. That's a lot onto the footage. Alright. If you want to tone down the look a bit, you click on the key icon here and then you go on the key output, and then this will dial it back a bit. Right? Enhance to dial it back. Alright, but we're not going to use a lot today. And then we want to add some color to this, pop color a little bit more. So we'll go up on the saturation, not too much, don't want the skin to get red. Then for the exposure now, add in some contrast, drop the shadows a bit, adjust the highlights, and then go under the curves, custom, add a point, bring out the midtones a bit, and then adjust the darkness. The next thing I want to show you now is how to copy a look onto our next footage. Instead of you doing all this step over and over again, you could just save the look and copy it onto other footage of similar camera settings or similar camera. That footage that share the same settings, we will copy from it. Alright? So for example now, this footage here and the previous one that I colored, this one is the same thing. So what I'll do, if I want to use a color profile from a next footage of similar settings, click on the one you want to color and then right click on the one you want to take the color from. So you go right, then you look for apply grade, alright? Then boom, just like that, footage has the same coloring. So you could select all by clicking the first one and then you click shift and then click again. And then right click on where you want to take the color from, apply grade, and then you click replace. So now all of the footage just like that is automatically colored. You repeat the process for the same again. You find the one you want, you right click, apply grade. Alright, so now this is some drone footage. So as I said before, color space transform. I think this is the only camera setting that Davinci doesn't have the input color space for as yet. But what I normally do is still use the one that they provide and it works just the same. So we're looking for DJI D-Gamut. As you could see, it had some color into it. But if you continue with the same process, so let's say, because it was shot in D-Log M and not D-Log, because the drone that I have doesn't have D-Log, it has D-Log M. But let's say you click D-Log same way, as you can see, it gets a bit darker because what happens is D-Log is super flat. So if it was D-Log footage, it would have been okay, but it's not. So what I normally do is still go through with the process. As you can see, it still works. Then I'll add a serial node, as I said, add it before. And then I'll just go in and lift the shadows. Alright. Saturation a bit. Then I'll go into my curves, change hue, click on the blue, and then I'll play with the colors to get it more to my creative look. Alright? And you have this thing called color boost that sometimes works wonders. Alright? Better than the saturation tool. So yeah, so basically that's that. So this is a flat one and I want to take the color from this one to put on it. So I just right click on this, select the one I want, right click on this, apply grade, boom, and that's it. So now this was shot on a different day but same settings as this one right here. So what we're going to do is to copy it to see if it works. And there you go, it works. But let's say we want to tweak it, because as you could see, the highlights are a bit sharp there. So we click on exposure, and then we adjust the highlights. Alright. And it's a bit on the greenish side, so I want to push some purple into it. Magenta. So we're using the offset wheel. As I said, offset is easier to make color adjustments. So if it's too blue, if it's too warm, if it's too green, it's too orange, just push the offset slider to the opposite end of the spectrum and that should resolve most of your problems. Alright, so that's it for conversion of log files. So this is what we have so far. So as you could see, this is how it is after cutting, moving, doing all of the luxury.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Voice isolation is on, so it removes the rhythm. That's one another effect you could use it for. So let's have on top again.
For that bag, go get it one day. You can brag. You want it, gotta work for that bag. Go get it one day. You can brag. I see that I have got it, no need to look all in a bag. Stunning like this cause I work so hard.
Alright, so you're finished with your footage and it's time to export to get it on the internet so people can watch it. Alright, so this is where your footage ends. The same method that you use to in and out from the preview window as I showed you earlier, you do it same place on the timeline. So you bring the cursor to where your footage ends, and you press O, the out point, and you bring it to where you want it to start, and you press I. Right? Then you click on this little rocket ship on the bottom toolbar. So for file name, you give your file a name, test video. And then location, where you want to put it. I'll put mine desktop. Then you set your settings here. Alright. So if it's MP4 or QuickTime MOV, you could upres from here. So you could go 4K if you want. Even though your timeline is 1080p, you could convert to 4K from here. I normally do that in 24p. Normally still leave this on automatic. And then you click add to render queue. And then you click render. And that's it. Your video will be where you placed it and you're good to go. So if you enjoyed this one, please hit the like button so I could know that you want to see more like this. Leave a comment below if you want to learn something specific that I didn't touch on, and I'll make it in a future video. And once you enjoyed and learned something from this, please let me know in the comment, because that will let me know if I'm helping you all out to edit your first project. I'm here for questions. You could reach me on my IG, links in description. So once you click that, you just send me a DM and I'll answer all the questions that you have if you need to know anything more. For future videos, what's coming up, I'll be teaching how to add subtitles. I could show you how to do special effects. I could dive deeper into the coloring, all of that, using LUTs. So you could skip out all of the transforming and all of that. You could just use a LUT, a conversion LUT that's already doing the work for you, and just dragging it on a clip and how to use it properly. I can show you all of that. But for now, that's it. Style Boss here, signing out. Hope you enjoyed this one. I tried to keep it short, but it is what it is. Please remember to like, share, subscribe if you enjoy my content. See you in the next one. Still here? I'm going home and get something to eat. Yeah.